Hi, I'm Mr. Liu, and I am your 7-Minute Sensei. This is the place where I summarize state strands and standards in 7 minutes or less.
Sometimes late when things are.
Computer, it's time to get started. Start the clock. Our topic today is Exploring Computer Science 1. This class is designed to introduce students to the field of computer science. The goal of Exploring Computer Science 1 is to develop in students the computational thinking practice of algorithm development, problem solving, and programming. Let's get started. In Strand 1, you'll learn about computer hardware and software. Standard 1, what is included in that hardware? You'll learn about things like your processor, the operating system or the disk operating system, RAM, random access memory, ROM, read-only memory, the hard drive or the hard disk, and input and output devices. This microphone here, input device. The monitor you're looking at, output device. The printer, output device. You'll also learn about clock speed. That's gigahertz. That's how fast your computer works. You'll learn about disk size, memory size, everything from kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte, and terabyte. Now, those were mentioned in order of size. So terabyte is going to be your largest there. Gigabyte, that's probably what you're more familiar with. That's probably the more common number on your computer there. In Standard 2, you'll learn about software applications. So what would you use to write a report or write a paper? Well, that's called a word processor. So if you have an option like choose Microsoft Word, if you need to put together a budget, some kind of a spreadsheet, that's called a spreadsheet. And probably the name that you'll be most familiar with or you want to look at in the test is Microsoft Excel. The Google equivalent would be Google Sheets. If you want to put together a presentation, look at PowerPoint. In Standard 3, you'll learn how to use a search engine like Google. And how do we use like Boolean logic? So we want to find schools or restaurants in Springville. So we choose restaurants and Springville, and that'll come up with more accurate searches. In Standard 4, you learn how to evaluate your web searches, the reliability, the credibility of that data there. So if it's a journalist, are they left-leaning? Do they have a bias towards liberal, have a liberal view or a conservative view? And you can look up that kind of information. Also, you want to make sure that this is a secure website. So if you're looking up research information, make sure in the address bar there's a little lock there that shows that that has a secure socket layer, and it's secure, it's protected. Okay, so your privacy is protected as well. In Standard 5, you're going to be looking at what constitute a computer. There are many devices today that would be considered a computer. Your smart devices, these little smartwatches, our desktop computers, our laptops. These are all types of computers. But you need to make sure that in order for something to be called a computer, it needs to have some kind of a processor inside of the device. And it should have some kind of storage device that it can store content. Of course, now with everything in the cloud, maybe that storage is rather limited. But there are essential things that you should find in that computer. Does it have an output type ability? In Standard 6, you're going to learn about how communication, privacy, and social interaction has changed. You learned about the CAN-SPAM Act. That was a law that was passed by the U.S. Congress to protect us from spam. And if we want to if we want to unsubscribe, they have to honor that and take you off their list. Okay? And you want to be careful. When you're on the internet, you want to be safe and you don't want to do risky things. You also want to put appropriate things on the internet. So just remember that this stuff will follow you for your life. So only put appropriate content out there. Note the performance skills. Make sure you are familiar with these performance skills and that you can in fact do them. In strand 2, we're talking about problem solving. So this is where we learn computational thinking, computational practices, and how we have this connection between problem solving, mathematics, and computer science. In standard 1, we learn how we do computational practices, the role of communication and collaboration in our problem solving. How do we design and implement creative solutions? Uh, in standard 2, we solve problems by appropriately using problem solving techniques. We understand the problem, we plan a solution, we carry out the plan, and we review and discuss our solution. In standard 3, you'll define an algorithm, which is, by the way, a set of clearly defined logical steps. So a recipe could be an algorithm. That's a step-by-step process. How do we make our favorite chocolate chip cookies? That is an algorithm. An algorithm could be many, many different things, step-by-step process. We'll explain in standard 5 binary numbers. How do you convert a binary number? How do you convert a decimal number to binary and a binary number to decimal? So learn that process. And how do you do that? Remember, if the binary number ends with 1, it's an odd number. Okay. In strand 3, you'll learn about programming, some basic programming. And so in standard 1, you learn about how to put together a storyboard or design a storyboard, a program. That is more or less creating a step-by-step process. You'll learn about the Scratch environment, and you'll learn about these things called sprites and your stage and a number of different categories like your events. Remember, it's that green flag that you can click on that will start your action or activity. What does it mean to broadcast? And how does the broadcast trigger a response? What are motions? How do you move? How do you rotate your sprite? What are looks? How do you make your sprite say something or switch its costume? How do you control through loops, conditions, and weights, operators? What are resources, tests, and how do you execute yours? And your Scratch program. Standard 2, what is iteration? How do you repeat something multiple times as long as the condition is true? Standard 3, how do you explain how a program functions? Standard 4, what are ethical responsibilities to our society as far as creating apps? So I've already exhausted my 7 minutes. You want to understand what some of the ethical issues are. And that's it, folks. So this is Mr. Liu, your 7-minute sensei, saying adios. Aloha, arrivederci, ciao, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, sayonara, shalom, saijen, and goodbye.